Hey everyone, you got Bob Roberts here with the Greenville, South Carolina Civil Air Patrol Squadron. And today we have a lesson on lesson planning of all things. And so really a lot of folks that are involved in emergency services and planning and education, they may not actually be professional teachers. And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to give you kind of, your core teacher education in an hour or less to help you out with your lesson planning. Okay. So with that, let's get started. Okay. As Ben Franklin had said, if you fail to plan, you are planning to fail. This goes along with a lot of things in life, but it especially goes true for if you want to teach a subject. What are we not going to be covering in this lesson? We are not going to be covering lesson plan templates. Those can be useful. However, we're not, somebody that has a principle. This lesson isn't for people who are professional teachers, who may get more value out of a lesson plan. Now, I actually do get value out of using a lesson plan template. But so feel free to use one if you would like one, but we're not really going to cover them here. It's kind of a little overkill for folks that are just doing general lessons. Okay. One quick shameless plug before we get started. If you can, please go ahead, and the big thing is subscribing. As of the time of making this video, we're at 940 subscribers and we've been growing pretty good. We're well ahead of the YouTube average for getting to 1,000. And we really want to hit 1,000 before April 30th of 2021. And so do me a favor if you can, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I really appreciate it. Also, there is a podcast, Aerospace-Live, where we have all of our guest interviews on as well. Also, in addition to this lesson planning video, as part of the South Carolina Virtual Wing Conference that we did this year, there's also a lesson on Congratulations, You're an AEO, which stands for Aerospace Education Officer. Now what? If you're somebody that's interested in learning more about aerospace education with Civil Air Patrol, go ahead and look at our YouTube channel. We'll be putting that up just shortly. Okay. Plug is done. All right. So when you're developing a lesson, we're going to follow 3 primary steps, right? So number 1, what is your objective, right? Number 2, how are you going to meet that objective? And then how do you know if you were successful, right? This isn't just education. This is pretty much the primary steps to anything you want to do, right? What do you want to do? How are you going to do it? How do you know you did it, right? And also, sharing is caring. So one of the things I want to focus on is when you're listening through this presentation, think about what your dream lesson is, right? So if money was no option, maybe you want to teach somebody how to fly a B-17 bomber, right? So what is your dream lesson, right? So then at the end of this video, what I'd like you to do is, since you're not in the virtual conference, you're on YouTube now, go ahead and put down in the comments down below, what was your dream lesson? Okay. All right. Now, starting with your objective. I'm a big believer in go big or go home. I really believe that, if you make really great large lessons, then even if they don't quite meet up to your expectations, they're still going to be awesome. Just for even trying to get that level. You're also going to be making relationships in the community as you're trying to get more people involved in your lessons. And so set the goals for that big lesson, right? And then start taking action. It's like the whole Nike commercial, right? Just do it. Okay. So start with your objective, right? So what do you want your students, whether that student is 12 years old, whether that student is 80 years old, right? What do you want that student to get out of your lesson? So what type of information is it that you're going to also be trying to teach? Is it new information? Is it information that you're going to be building on previous background knowledge that you might have already taught? Hands-on skills? Memory mastery. Unfortunately, we still have to worry about memory mastery. Us pilots, ton of stuff, emergency procedures, your V speeds, all of those things are all just pure memory. And then, is your lesson actually going to be to practice and reinforce a previous lesson? And so ask yourself at this stage, at the end of the lesson, you may have spent, say, an hour, right? What do you want that student to be able to know or to be able to do to show that lesson is successful? Also, is this lesson a one-off lesson, or is it really part of a bigger unit? You may have, a lesson that's actually 5 lessons as opposed to just 1 lesson. And then we would call that a unit. So that's good to identify at this stage. Okay. Now, what are your students going to do, right? What activities are they going to perform? What discussions are they going to have? Is that a group discussion? Is that a small unit discussion? Is that a discussion with the whole class? A discussion with the teacher? What type of discussions you might have? Any assignments you might give out during the lesson? Assignments you may give to them to go home with. We're in CAP. I'm part of Civil Air Patrol. We try our best not to give out, homework as far as aerospace, because the kids get enough homework as it is. But there may be some things that are appropriate for the kids to kind of look up or to kind of entertain, away from the squadron, and also hands-on activities, right? And again, I just want to reinforce, while this lesson that you're watching right now is is based off of a Civil Air Patrol wing conference lesson, this is really good for anybody. I really made this, decentralized, and it's really able for anybody who wants to teach something so that you can follow these steps. All right. So finally, right. So you've taught it, you had your objective, you went ahead and you taught it. Did they get it? Right. How do you know, was your objective successful? And what if they didn't get it? What if you're looking out into the room, maybe even halfway through the lesson, you can look out into the room and you can tell, oh boy, this has gone horribly wrong, and nobody's getting what I'm trying to tell them. So definitely try to take a look at that, and also try to plan that into your lesson plan. Right, have a plan B into the lesson plan. All right. Now, what's the actual material that you're going to teach? Right, how are you going to teach it? And so there's really a couple of strategies that you can use. You can do lecturing. This is teacher-led. This is what we think of normally when we think of teachers. We think of them, somebody standing up in front of the classroom, right, and just lecturing. I will tell you that here at Civil Air Patrol, I'm very much a proponent of not lecturing, or if you have to lecture, you lecture in small doses. So say you have an hour-long lesson, and you have 20 minutes of lecture. You have an hour-long lesson, you have 20 minutes of lecturing. Then maybe break it up into 4 5-minute mini lectures, mixed in between, some hands-on lessons. Interactive learning is a great strategy. Stations, I don't see us doing this very much out in Civil Air Patrol. Put some stations together, especially if you have a larger squadron. Maybe you have 2, 3, 4 different stations, and the cadets and the students or the senior members, they can rotate in between those stations. Extension activities. What happens if you get a couple of your students that just really excel? They really are grabbing a hold of what you're trying to teach them, and they want to go beyond it, right? So it's always great to have some extension activities identified for every lesson. Student exploration. We're going to talk about this a little bit later. Sometimes the best way to teach somebody is not to teach them. Just give them, something to do, and let them grow. Let them really explore that knowledge, that topic themselves. Student-led. This is very similar to the other one. The other student exploration is really kind of by themselves kind of thing. And a student-led, instead of having a teacher up at the front of the classroom, maybe you've got, 1 or 2 of your students are up at the classroom. And then small teams. We have roughly 50. We've had as much as 100 students in my lessons where I'm at. And that's a really big group. Sometimes you're better off trying to break that down into small teams, 3, 4, 5 people teams. It really helps them to stay engaged. And then exploring or presenting, right? Okay, so lecture at your own risk. As I mentioned before, there's places where lecturing is good. There's some times where you just got to have that movement of information from one person to another, and the best way you can do it sometimes is with lecturing. However, just remember, especially if you're not a professional teacher, and if you are a professional teacher and you have different opinions on this, leave those comments down below. I'd like your opinions on this. I have my master's in education. I have a master's in special education, but I am not a professional teacher. So I'm interested in professional teachers' opinions on these topics. But my opinion is the students have either been in work all day or they've been in class all day. So by the time they get to their extracurricular activity, whether you're in Civil Air Patrol, the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, whatever it is, they really don't want to listen to somebody teach at them. So if you have to do it again, just sprinkle mini lessons into one larger lesson. And the other thing to really remember is that teaching isn't about you, right? So if you're the teacher, the lesson isn't about you. It's about the students. So make sure that what you're doing isn't just an exploration of what you know. Right. The objective has to be about what you want the students to know, and not you just expressing, how great you are. Also remember that you don't need to be the one giving the information to be a successful teacher, right? So it's really hurtful to our pride sometimes, right? If we give it up and we go, oh, the kids really don't need us, then why are we even here? Well, you know what? You build the formation, you build the structure around the lesson. And then sometimes the best way to teach is to not teach. The best way to teach is to give them the area and then get out of the way, right? So sometimes being invisible is the most helpful thing you can do to the learning process. Okay. I love this poster. And so just remember, there's no mistakes. There's just happy accidents. So in a classroom, you should make sure your lessons are an area that is open for people to make mistakes, right? If you are not making mistakes, as the saying goes, you're not trying hard enough. So allow your students, right? Allow them to make those mistakes and grab onto them. Some of the best things that I've been able to teach so far have been things that have come off of mistakes that I've seen other students. Matter of fact, we just did a presentation on how to build a wing, an airplane wing. And we used tinfoil to wrap around some wing spars. Well, the tinfoil was just far too flimsy. And so it ended up being like everybody's wings ended up looking like Hot Pockets. So at first you go, oh, that's horrible, right? Everybody wanted to build a wing and nothing looked like a wing. Well, it really got us talking about material sciences, right? About the aluminum foil, it's not thick enough. It was too it bent too easy. It didn't hold its shape well enough around the wing. So again, that was absolutely something that could have been looked at as a mistake, but we used it as a happy accident. Okay. This is honestly, out of the whole presentation, this is my favorite slide. And this is, I say integrate overrides, but this is really about hands-on learning as opposed to knowledge-based learning. So just think about for a second, if you were learning how to ride a bike, right? How would you do it if you were learning how to ride a bike in a classroom, right? We would show you what the saddle is, what the handlebars are, how the wheels work, how the pedal turns and how that turns, the chain, and the chain's attached to the back wheel. And if you want to stop, how the brake works. Okay. Two things are going to be true at the end of that lesson. Nobody's going to know how to ride a bike. And there's a pretty good chance that nobody's going to want to learn how to ride a bike. They're just going to say, oh, forget about it. I'm just going to walk and forget about it. Right. So how did you actually learn how to ride a bike? Right. So how you learned how to ride a bike was somebody helped you. So you sat down on a bike, you put your hands on the handlebar, you put your feet on the pedal. Somebody, they kind of helped you along. And they mentored you on how to ride a bike, and eventually they let go and you were off to the races. You started riding a bike all by yourself. Right. And so what did that develop? That developed a lifelong love of biking, right? As opposed to school where they might have shown you a picture in a book, right? So now if you're from Civil Air Patrol specifically, I want to ask you, the aerospace educators, to integrate your O-rides into your aerospace education, right? So teach them how to ride a bike. Don't just show them a picture of the airplane, okay? Scaffolding. So it's super important, right? I don't care if you're in Civil Air Patrol. I don't care if you're a professional teacher. I don't care what you're trying to teach. Everybody learns at a different pace, right? So everybody listening to this video learns at a different pace, right? We all have different student ages. Those students have different experiences and they have special needs. I, for one, don't hear very good in my left ear. I can't really hear anything out of my left ear. So if I go into a room and people are talking really quiet, or if it's a really big lecture room and I'm sitting in the back because I can't get to the front, or there's no good amplification, I may not be able to get anything out of that lecture, even though I really want to. And so, scaffolding may mean, wearing a microphone and having a speaker in the room so that, people can't hear well, making sure that your visuals, maybe somebody can't see well, making sure your visuals are real easy to see. They're not fine print. Maybe somebody, we're going to get to this next slide, but people just learn differently, right? And they learn differently and speeds. So what you really need to do is your lesson needs to take that into account, right? Make your lesson accessible to everybody that you possibly can. All right, so this is actually what I was starting to talk about as far as the different learning styles, right? So there's really 4 learning styles that we'll get into here, right? You have visual, auditory, read, write, and kinesthetic, right? Visual is what we're kind of used to, right? They learn by seeing, right? So there's charts, there's graph, right? There's PowerPoints. Right now, you're looking on the screen right there, right? I've got the PowerPoint up and running, right? And so I want you to engage by visual, but I also want you to engage by listening. So you have the auditory, you're hearing me talk, right? And so the read alouds, listening centers, verbal instructions, discussions, repeat to a friend. Honestly, this is the whole teach a teacher kind of thing. Teach somebody how to teach it to somebody else. Honestly, that's probably the best thing on here, other than the hands-on kinesthetic. If you can teach somebody something or give somebody the information and have them teach that information to the person sitting next to them, or a parent share, so to speak, then that's really going to be the best way, because now they're really thinking about what they're trying to teach their friend. The read write, we don't do this as much in Civil Air Patrol. Maybe this works out well for wherever you're going to be. That's really by your books, your textbooks. I can tell you that, for aviation, it's really important. I know I just personally, I'm learning how to get better on a G1000, right? So I've got, Max Trescott's, G1000 book here. But this is reading and writing, but then you take it to the airplane and you actually try it, right? So that leads us into the kinesthetic. So kinesthetic is learned by doing, right? So move your body, right? Touch something. When you're teaching about airplanes, if you can, if you're teaching at a squadron, or if you can get yourself to an airport or whatever you're trying to teach, whether it's Boy Scout, Girl Scouts, you're teaching knots, right? Don't just show a picture of a knot, right? Or show you tying a knot. Right? Have lots of rope. Have everybody tying knots, right? Get that hands on. And so obviously tying knots is a really simple example, but all of your lessons should try to have some type of hands-on activity. Again, also remembering that those of you that are probably watching this are not professional teachers, and these kids, when they come to us, have all been in classrooms all day long, or if they're adults, they've been in jobs all day long. They want to get their hands on doing something. Okay. Don't underestimate the cost of supplies. So are you going to be self-funding this lesson? Are you going to be asking for donations? If you're in Civil Air Patrol, are you going to be asking for approval from your unit or your wing? Can you borrow supplies from other units or outside of CAP? Really, what is the cost of that lesson per student? If you've only got 5 students and it costs $2 per person, okay, cool. That's $10. But if you've got 100 students and it's $2 per person, it's $200 to give that lesson, right? So what is the cost for a student? It really matters. And don't discount fundraising. You may have somebody in your squadron or in your organization, maybe they're kind of quiet, right? Maybe they don't want to get up in front of the group and they don't want to teach something. And, maybe they feel like they don't have that special knowledge to be able to teach something, but they want to help, right? Fundraising is an incredible way to get those people involved. And then that funds that they're able to bring on will help with your supplies, because again, we want lessons that go big, right? Unfortunately, going big, sometimes, not always, but sometimes going big means expensive. Okay. Also, don't underestimate technology. And I see so many people having a hard time with this, right? And so what type of technology does your lesson require? Don't underestimate how much time it's going to take for you to set it up. Don't give yourself just 2 minutes to walk into a classroom or to an area where you have to set up a projector, a screen, a computer, a laptop, audio, whatever it is that you have to set up. Don't underestimate how long it's going to take you, because once that time has started, you're not really wasting your time. You're wasting an opportunity that you could be using to teach everybody else, right? As they're staring at you, trying to get something to work, right? And so you really want to have everything up and running. Also, this goes back to the fundraising thing too. Look in your group, look in your organization. Who are your smart IT people, right? Who's your smart technology people? Ask them for help, right? Again, those people, they want to, if they're in a volunteer organization, they want to volunteer. They want to feel useful. They don't want to just sit in the back row of your building, of your room. They want to feel like they're actively involved. So talk to them in advance. Say, hey, Jane, I'm going to be working on this presentation. I need a projector. I need a computer hooked up. And I got somebody like me who's hard of hearing, and, they need a speaker, so the class can hear better. And by the way, if you have a speaker in the classroom, everybody hears better. The student-led demos, don't underestimate the importance of having your students lead the demonstrations. This is going to keep them much more engaged. Their peers are likely to pay more attention to their fellow students when their students are doing the demonstrations. Also, if you're talking about adults or even the kids, maybe you've got a kid, you've got an adult, maybe you want to teach a lesson on drones. Maybe you have very limited experience on flying a drone, but you might have people in your room or your organization who that's their hobby, that's their love, that's their passion. I'll tell you what, don't you feel that you have to be the one teaching about drones, right? Your objective is for the student to learn something. Your objective isn't for you to be the one to teach it. And so it's really important for, giving the opportunity to people that have that knowledge to share it. Now, they may not be natural teachers. They may not be comfortable. So you may have to work with them. You can't just throw them up in the front of the classroom, but you work together with them and you say, hey, this is the objective I'd like to have. Can you help me teach this? And again, we're all doing volunteer organization stuff, so people want to help. Okay. Long-term plans. I'm a really big fan, especially in aerospace education for Civil Air Patrol, of having a long-term plan, at least 12 months. This is not a detailed plan. This is a bullet point plan. This is, I want to teach rocketry level 1, in April. And because what happens is when you put together kind of, the 6 to 12 lesson long-term plan on the calendar, your brain starts to think about all of these things that you now have your lessons. The mind is a wonderful thing. Once you write something down, you've kind of sold it to yourself that this is what you're going to do. And so even if that lesson is 6-7 months from now, when you're in bed, you may wake up, and go, oh, you know what? I just had a really good idea for that lesson I'm doing in 6 months. If you don't write down what you're going to be trying to teach, if you write down 3 days before you're actually going to teach it, then your brain really hasn't had time to really contemplate, okay, I can do the basics, but how do I really make this a really great lesson? And by doing a long-term planning session, you really give yourself an opportunity to really let your brain, work with time and really figure out how am I going to really make this thing better and better. Let's see here. The other thing too is developing a menu. I think this is a wonderful thing. I don't do enough of this myself personally, and I really need to do better on this. So if you have, say, 6 months of lessons, if you're in Civil Air Patrol, that might mean you have 1 lesson a month. So let's say you got to come up with 6 lessons over the next 6 months. Well, you know what? Think of 12 to 18 lessons, just super high level, just the topic, right? Nothing detailed whatsoever. Take those 12 to 18 lessons, put them on one slide, right? Or make an online vote, right? And then have the people, have your students choose of that menu that you gave them, which ones do they want? Now they're going to be more active. They're going to be more engaged. They're going to look forward to the lessons you're giving because they took an active part in picking out which lessons that they're going to learn. And also, that if you just go to your students and you say, hey, what do you want to learn next month? You're going to get this. You're going to get silence. You're going to get people staring at you. No one wants to say anything. Maybe you get the one kid who raises their hand all the time, right? But chances are you're not going to get much of anything back, right? But now give them a menu and give them a way to vote on those and get everybody's vote. So you get the introverts vote, you get the extroverts vote, you get everybody's vote, right? So the students will just love those choices. Okay. I already talked about this, but this is sleeping on your lessons. Now you got your lessons kind of outlined. Your brain's just going to start thinking about this stuff. Keep a little notepad next to your bed so when you wake up, you don't give yourself a chance to forget it. All right. I mentioned this earlier, go big or go home. I'm a huge fan of the big lesson. if you got to take somebody who's been in work all day or they've been in class all day, and if you're doing one lesson a month, right, make it every once in a while, make it a huge lesson. Make it something that people go, you know what, Lieutenant Roberts is teaching tonight. I can't wait to see what he's got. Or better yet, we voted on a topic and Lieutenant Roberts has been working on this thing for 3 or 4 months. I can't wait to go to this lesson to see what he came up with, right? Now, the opposite of go big or go home. You can't go big all the time, right? You're going to burn out. So in between your really big lessons, enjoy the little lessons too, right? You don't need to have the big 2-hour lessons, right? The big, hour and a half lessons all the time. Put together a little lesson, right? Give everybody a break. Give everybody a little breather, right? Maybe you have a topic that's really important to be taught so that people start thinking about it before you have the next big lesson. We talked about units as opposed to an individual lesson. So maybe you've got that, that real big lesson that's coming up in 2 or 3 months. But you've got to have 2 or 3 of those little, background lessons, right? And so sprinkle those in. Okay. Don't burn yourself out. Okay. This comes right from the National Education Associations. Now the NEA has the 4 C's. I saw a TED talk where they added 2. So this adding of 2 was not my idea. But I really felt it was powerful. So I agreed. And I'll add the 2 C's as well. And so the NEA's 4 C's are, what's important, right? To consider yourself a success in your lessons. What are you really trying to do overall, right? Other than this teaching an individual topic, you want to be teaching critical thinking, right? Our future with our students demands them to have critical thinking skills. That's really the fundamental difference in our society today. Who has critical thinking and who doesn't, right? Communication skills, collaboration, working together, right? Social media is so huge, between collaboration, creativity, right? And the two that were added from a TED Talk was one choice. That's where we get into that menu idea, right? The students having an ability to have choice in what it is that they want to learn. And the last of the C's is caring. And, nobody should think of caring as I'm going to go and I'm going to hug everybody. For what it's worth, I am a happy hugger. So as long as it's not like the creepy hug, I'm a big fan of hugging. I love hugging. I'm a happy hugger, like I said. But that's not what this caring is talking about, right? This caring is talking about when you're putting together your lesson plan, come from it from an attitude of, I really care for my students, right? I really care. I don't care if it's an 8-year-old student. I don't care if it's a 108-year-old student, right? I really care for the individuals that I'm going to teach, right? So therefore, I'm going to give this the time to really put together a good lesson, because I care, right? So C.W. Lewis has a great quote that I love. The passionate care of the well-being of the other is the highest form of love, right? So again, this isn't talking about creepy hugs. This is just talking as a human being from one person to another, making sure that that you care for each other, and you can show that in your lesson plans. Okay. Now, when you're all done with your lesson, you've done your lesson, you're driving home, you're not over, right? It's not over yet. Now it's time to reflect, right? So go into your yoga Zen state, right? Meditate, right? How did your lesson go, right? Now, because a lot of us that are watching this video are not professional educators, we're not going to be teaching the same lesson 5, 6, 7, 8 times, every year. You may only teach the lesson once or twice, every year or 2, right? So it's really important. Take your lesson plan and make some notes, right? So what would you change for the next time? Because maybe the next time, maybe somebody is going to be taking your position and teaching this lesson next time. And it's good to give them that feedback. Hey, I already taught this lesson. When you teach it, obviously they're teaching it. Maybe they want to do something completely different than you did. But a lot of times people want to build off of something that somebody else already has, right? So sharing is caring, right? So share your ideas with your lesson plans, write them down, and then what worked, what didn't work, and what would you change next time? Almost every lesson I have, I don't think I've ever had a lesson that went 100% perfect. I had one lesson right in the middle of it. We started talking about black holes. The lesson had nothing to do with black holes. And we completely pivoted the conversation to talk about black holes because it was far more interesting than the topic we were teaching. So really, take the time to reflect. All right, a couple things. So great teachers, right? So what do great teachers do? Great teachers learn to listen, right? A lot of times people think that teachers, they just talk, right? It's easy for me to do, right? I'm on a YouTube video right now, right? What am I doing? I'm talking, right? What you want to do though is you want to learn to listen. A student may say something to you, and if you're so busy getting to the next topic that you want to talk about, listen, this is just general good life thing, right? How many times do we have a significant other, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a friend, whoever, right? They're just not listening, right? You could tell they're thinking about what they want to say next to you. They're not listening at all to what you're saying, right? Learn to listen to what your students are saying to you, right? Also, especially if you're in Civil Air Patrol, this is me personally. I love this one. Think like a kid, but act like an adult, right? You got to act like an adult. You got to be professional. You got to be on top of your game, but think like a kid. Have some fun, love to learn, right? I don't think there's anything honestly more important for a teacher than loving to learn themselves. My favorite lessons are when I come into a group and I may say, you know what? We had this on our menu item and I don't know anything about that topic. So maybe everybody, the students, the teacher, we all learn it together, right? And with that, don't be fake. Don't go in front of a classroom and act like you know something if you don't know it. That will be seen right through super fast. So take your time. Your students will appreciate it much more if they know where you're coming from, and if you're learning with them and they know that. It's just they're gonna jump right in with you. Again, learn with the students. Lastly, eat apples. If you're gonna be a teacher, you gotta eat an apple. All right, so we're getting close to the end here. Here's what I'd like you to do. I would like you, because with the whole YouTube algorithm things, but also I'd want to hear from you, right? In the comments section down below, even if you don't subscribe, even if you don't like, in the comments section down below, go ahead. What is your big lesson? What's the big lesson you want to teach? I really want to hear that. Is it something that, maybe other people that are watching this video, maybe somebody has an idea for you. Maybe they have a contact. Maybe you want to do something with the space shuttle, right? We're just about to hit, the 40th anniversary, something like that with the space shuttle. And so maybe, you want to talk to an astronaut. Well, maybe somebody knows somebody that could get you to talk to an astronaut from the space shuttle era, right? So go ahead and put down your comment down below on what you want to teach. With that, I want to thank you for your time. I hope this was valuable for you. If you have any questions, go ahead and post them down below. And I do my best. This is a super tiny, small little YouTube channel. And so I do my best to get out there and I respond to every single one of you that has any questions. If you want to learn more about Civil Air Patrol, maybe you're not in Civil Air Patrol, you want to know more about what Civil Air Patrol is, let me know. I'll be happy to help you with that information. But regardless if you're in the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, any type of organization where you're giving lesson plans, I hope that this video was valuable for you. And with that, I want to say thank you, and we'll talk to you later. Bye. Hey, I hope you've enjoyed that video. If you did, please do me a favor, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button if you want to see more content. Up here on the left-hand side, you're going to see another video from our this playlist. And if you click down here, you're going to see another video on our channel. Hope you guys all have a great day. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.